Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm starting my drone build now. It's been a few days. I'm pretty keen to hook into it. Feeling pretty tired at the moment, um, but just keen to get this project underway. So I was like, let's do it. It's never a right time. I'll film some of the build, but I'm not going to comment on it or anything. I might overlay it later, but just going to do like a time lapse or something of the build, see how it goes. Might be a fair bit of starting and stopping, just trying to work it out as I go. I haven't built one of these before. Might do a bit of soldering practice. Got a little board here, new iron as well, so get the hang of that. See how things go, but hope you guys enjoy it. So this is just the unboxing, getting everything in place. I'm a pretty organized person when it comes to building. I like to see everything in front of me, so just laying it out, getting to know exactly where all the parts, what they are and the shapes, and at the same time I'm following a YouTube tutorial. It seemed to be the easiest way to build it, so back and forth between the computer and just trying to work it out as I go. The illustrated parts breakdown is a little bit hard to follow from that comes with the kit. Found it easier just to follow online tutorial. YouTube always helps. So that's the body of the drone together. As you can see, it just sort of clicks together to form like a rigid shape, and there's like a key that goes in the middle of the four arms, locks them in together. Screw all, then screws together to hold it in place with that lower plate. Apologies for I'm a bit out of camera with a lot of the actual screwing and putting bits together, but all part of the learning. It's not going to be perfect, is it? That's the X shape together in one bit, ready to go. Now there's a bit of back and forth just trying to work out. There's two little rubber mounts at the front going on. There's a few steps along the way where it was like I put stuff on and then it's like, oh, I don't actually need this bit, so pulling it back off. That the Allen key set that I got was really handy. Just makes things a lot. All the Allen's like screwdrivers just so much quicker. Instead of 4, I think it ranges from like a 1.5 mil to like a 2.5. Those are I think those are standoff posts. The 4 ones you can see in the middle there. Yep, the standoffs that separate the two, the upper and lower plate, those ones. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, just feel free to shoot me a message or comment. I'm more than happy to help people. Clipping the little landing pads on. I have flown this drone and definitely know they get a workout. First FPV drone, but it's more of a, for those who haven't flown FPV before, it's more of like a guided crash, I like to call it. So any of these parts, they do get a workout. I landed my drone on concrete, fairly smooth, but it's still a bit of a, when you get into ground effect and sort of bobbing around a bit, it's almost like a controlled crash. the final landing's definitely not like a DJI drone where you just smooth sailing all the way, where you've got the computer helping you. Throwing a few more screws in for the posts, I think those ones are. This unit sits at the back of the drone, this like rubber setup. For, as you'll see, this is actually the wrong one. That one is for mounting a GPS unit, which I'm not using. I'm just doing a lot more closer flying at the moment. Through my journey, I can definitely see that the GPS unit is quite beneficial. Something that I'll probably add in, but at this point, just doing local little flights around parks and stuff like that with drones. If I do lose it, it's fairly close. So I assembled it and put it on, and I was like, couldn't quite work it out. Bit of head scratching here. Took a bit to work out that I don't actually need this part. Pretty sure I will put it on, but let's see. So that's like the, what is it, the flight controller. Here's where I'm starting to solder it all together. Been a couple of years off the soldering iron, to be honest, but it's sort of one of those skills that I never really left me. Pretty easy. Apologies for the head in the way. These are all little things to remember for next time. Definitely blocking the view a lot of the time, but we get the gist of what's going on. Just soldering on the battery lead there. So they're pretty heavy gauge lead, just goes from the board to the back there where the battery plugs in. First thing I worked out with drones is just like the amount of space you have. They are so compact, everything is crammed in there. So those leads are quite short. Just adding a bit more solder there, a bit more heat, but just being conscious of not trying to put too much heat through a board, because I think you're pretty safe with these. They're probably isolated, the heat wouldn't travel into the board too much, but just being conscious of that. You don't want to fry anything along the way. You may need to stop and pause and just go back to see the finer details. Sitting on, I think it's 4 times speed or something at the moment. Just mounting the motors. Quickly throw those on. In preparation for soldering those to the board. Sorry, this board would be the ESC because it's the motors get wide to this, so it's got to be the ESC. Apologies. Electronic speed controller. Motors going on. Like so. Oh, these are little leads that the wires feed through. Keeps them tidy onto the arms. 4 of, obviously. They just got double-sided tape on them, which secures them to the arms. Gave them a quick clean with some alcohol, just helps with the adhesion of those. Throw them on like so. Four of. Now I'm just trimming the wires to the right length. These are the wires for the motors. It doesn't matter how you wire them, as long as they're at like 3 together in the correct positions. It doesn't matter which wire you use. I think with a brushless motor, the board works out which one needs to be the sensor and positive and negative, I assume. I guess they're like an AC, the polarity, so some electronic wizardry in there. I quite enjoyed the process of building this, by the way. It's something that reminds me of my youth. I used to play around remote control cars a lot when I was a kid, so it was nice to just spend some time to chill out and build this up. I'm pretty happy with how it all came out. There was the only thing was that wire for the battery. As you can see there, it was actually too short. I ended up having to resolder it. I'll redo it with a different plug just to get it to, different wiring. The wiring I cut was too short. I just couldn't get it to sit properly, so I had to redo that, but minor details. Just soldering all these 3 on. Got the tweezers there just so I don't burn my little fingers. Snip, snip, snip. Cut them to length. Stripping them with a scalpel. Not the best tool for the job. A bit dangerous. Just with the length of them, it was hard to hold them and get wire strippers on without wrecking the wire because they're quite small. This is the capacitor. Helps with fluctuations, I think, when you're connecting the battery. Could be wrong. Please correct me. When you first connect the battery, I think it dissipates that. Just for access, because there wasn't a lot of room at the back there, I ended up remote mounting it further forward towards the front of the drone near the camera, so I just threw some little wires on there, some of the excess on the motors, soldered that up, threw a bit of heat shrink on them, just on the ends there, or just where the solder is, just to give those a bit of protection. Normally I'd use a heat gun. Would not recommend a lighter for heat shrinking, but it's good backup, does the job. Just be careful. This is the DJI Air unit. A little bit of back and forth getting that, just working out, being my first build, how that all goes. The antenna there, I just marked the wires on those, you note there, with a white paint pen. That was just to remember where they went. Not sure if it matters or not, but I just marked the air unit and the wire because they can be crossed over quite easily. That that antenna wire just had to get popped out to feed it through that tube for the holder. As you can see, I'm taking that GPS unit back off. As I worked out, I didn't actually need that, so. Throwing the correct one on, which just has the antenna mount. Feeding the wires through the center there, antenna wires. Back on, and the cover goes on that. That little cover holds it so the wires can't come out. Just trying to work out how to run the wires and mount the posts and that in this step here. As you can see, there's little spaces there that go, the screws, the spaces, and then the air unit mounts directly to those screws. It's fairly finicky, especially with the gap that runs under the air unit. You don't get a lot of space to run the wires through, so just a little bit of back and forth and holding the spaces in place, plus getting the air unit lined up. It's a little bit of a process, but it's not super difficult. Working on aircraft definitely has taught me some skills around trying to get into tricky spots. So that's the air unit mounted there. Just looking at the flight controller, plugs into the air unit. Just a really key note, I think it's at this point, but there's a step in the Speedy Bee manual that tells you about removing a wire from the DJI air unit, which it's a little ambiguous, but I ended up removing it, and it took me a long time to troubleshoot and work out that when you're using DJI air unit with DJI goggles and controller, which I'm doing in this scenario, you don't need to remove that wire. It's the S-bus wire. I'm pretty sure if you're using it with any other, the air unit with other receivers, you don't need that. You've got to remove that S-bus wire, but that was just a single plug. You'll see that connector in the middle there, that short ribbon cable with like 8 wires. I took the S-bus out of that. And yeah, it took me a long time. A lot of troubleshooting and different forums and stuff to work that out. Just working out how to route that wire for the capacitor in this current step. As you can see, it's just up the front there near the camera. Those black are the two black pieces of the two front plates where the camera mounts to. These are like rubber mounts that vibration mounts, the yellow and black pieces. So depending on the camera that you use, you just got to get the right width. I can't remember exactly which ones I used, but as we were playing around just trying to get them, working out where they fit and what direction, and I got there eventually. Seems to be working fine after first test flight. Tiny little screws though, like those screws I'm pulling out of the camera. Just be really careful of those. It'd be quite easy to cross thread them. Bit of head scratching here, just trying to work out the correct mounts. Apologies for the head in the way again. I think I knew at this point what had happened to my head anyway, so I was conscious of trying to move out of the way a bit more. These are like backing plates that part of the front plates. Pretty sturdy, I guess. It's designed to try and protect the drone in a crash, protect the camera. So it's pretty solid. Obviously it's the first thing it's going to stove into the ground. Hopefully never get to use, but it's inevitable crashing an FPV drone, especially when you start pushing the limit. Just mounting, sandwiching the two boards together. I think it was at this point I realized that the battery connector solder was a little bit too thick, so the two were sort of, there was a connector on the upper board was touching on that solder. So just a bit of playing around with that. I had to change that wiring so it wasn't pressing down hard on that connector on the upper board, wasn't pressing down hard on the battery connector. It's all, everything's got rubber mounts to help with vibration and that. And just working out a place for the capacitor, how to, just bending it up. I cable tied that in just to stop it moving around. The capacitor, that is, tied it to the cabling that was running out the front. 2 battery straps installed. This is the upper plate getting put on at the moment. Screwing it all down. A little bit better with my drone positioning here. You can actually see a bit better what's going on. That's the GoPro mount, goes up the front. Looks really good. I love the colour of it, of all the rubber components. Love it. Screw it all down. Upper plate. Pretty rigid once all this goes on. And what do we have? Oh yeah. I had to pull the top plate back off. I think when I did it all up, the mounts of the camera weren't right. It was, they're spaced a little bit differently. There wasn't enough room there between the camera, so I just had to put different mounts in there just to, I could see that the camera was done up tight to the plates, but it wasn't, it was pulling them inwards. They weren't sitting square to the top frame, so I couldn't get the top frame to screw up properly. Different mounts fixed that, spaced it out better. Just reassembling that top plate again, screwing it all back in for the second time. Those battery straps can go in afterwards, you don't have to have them mounted in there. There's enough room to slide them in and out. A couple of props there too. Camera looking better this time, nipping it up. Taking the nuts off, props going on. This is just sort of a temporary, I think they're on backwards. I just threw them on just for looks to show it complete. Battery's not charged or anything, just strapping it in just to show how it all goes together. Quick clean. That's the pad for where the battery goes on. Helps keep it in place so it doesn't slide on the upper frame. Not sure what's going on here, a bit of faffing around, that's for sure. Give it a clean, throw that on, battery's going on again. Strap it in. That's pretty much done, that's the build. Came up really good, love the purple props, I reckon they look unreal. FlyFishRC. Quality of all the componentry in that, probably like, I'll give it a 4 out of 5. Room for improvement. There's one or two screws, I can't remember where, but they were, I think, longer or shorter than what was specified, but minor details, everything looks mint. Thanks for watching.